Hello and welcome to the very first Ademola Bookmen Podcast, where me, Alistair Bond, and my friend John Coughlan will be reading footballers' autobiographies so you don't have to. And with our very first podcast, we're starting out with the skittle vodka swilling, opposition fan taunting, England hero Jamie Vardy.
Was he an England hero? Anyway, let's find out, I suppose. Jamie Vardy from Nowhere, My Story. Released on the 6th of October 2016. Anything in particular about that date gives anything away about the book, Al?
Is there something we should do? It was written just after the Euros, is that right?
Well, I think more significantly, it was written just after Leicester won the league. Anyway.
Oh, almost as if it's a cash grab, Johnny.
So it was 5 months after they won the league, and I guess he'd just been in the 2016 England squad for the Euros as well.
Golden memories.
The ghostwriter was Stuart James, a Forest fan who himself, I guess maybe this is what made him a good ghostwriter, at least in from Vardy's point of view, was he himself was a former apprentice at Swindon, and he got let go. He was there for 2 years as apprentice, and he played professionally for a year. Did you know his name? It seems familiar. He writes for The Athletic and The Guardian.
Stuart James doesn't ring a bell for me. But I think you're right about the player stuff, because I can't see Mr. Vardy getting along with some book nerd academic, can you? I don't think Jamie Vardy would care for a professorial type. Yeah, it had to be an ex-footballer.
I'd love to hear Stuart James's take on what it was like sitting down with the great man for however long it takes. Like, what's the process, you reckon? They sit down for 2 weeks, gives some stories, and he's like, okay, give me a book. Is that how it works?
I mean, I have to say, having read the books, I don't think it was 2 weeks worth of research. They sat down for an afternoon, maybe, had a coffee at McDonald's or something. How did the book come across? What were the reviews like?
You beat me to my question, Al. Goodreads, 776 people, not insignificant. What do you reckon this got out of 5? Not what you'd give it, but what it got from those 776 people.
Presumably the people reading the book are going to be Leicester fans, so overall positive. I would imagine it's above 4. Is it above 4?
4.24, which
ill-deserved.
And on Amazon, if that wasn't high enough, 1,200 people read this, or at least, rated it on Amazon and gave it a whopping 4.6. Like, that's like that's like George Orwell levels of review there for
it certainly is.
Anyway,
yeah, it's a 9 out of 10 book, that, right? That's
yeah.
Well, folks, spoiler alert, it ain't.
Yeah, well, not to dwell too long on the reviewers, but I wrote down a couple maybe to give us a flavor. I like this one. A review from Mike Vardy, who gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I'm going to read this one to you. I'm fairly new to soccer, but the fact that this guy shares my last name was the reason I got into it in the first place. It was great to hear his story, and while I felt it could have been a bit shorter, it was a good read. Yes.
It would have been much shorter. It would have been an introduction and over.
I'll give you one more review. A 1 out of 5 review, because obviously you want to know the worst review.
Sounds more like it.
Vardy, whilst a fabulous player, comes across as a spoilt brat-like PL player, presumably Premier League. He really doesn't seem to have any redeeming qualities. A depressing insight into a typical PL player's life and mindset. If he set himself out to come across as a nasty character, then he has succeeded, in my opinion. There you go.
Well, I mean, he does have some redeeming qualities. He's really very good at football. I mean, that's undeniable.
Tell us what you thought of Vardy before you read this.
I mean, Jamie Vardy's famously, I thought he might be a little bit of fun. I know he's famously antagonistic. I think Leicester fans recognise he's a fairly spiky character off the pitch. So I guess that's what I was expecting, is a fairly unpleasant character. And I wasn't disappointed.
But you have those like Alan Smith comes to mind, the Leeds and the United, Man United, Alan Smith, and like the likes of maybe Tevez, those fellas who you absolutely hate when they're on the opposing team, but then when they're on your team, like an absolute hero. So, what's the view of? Is that how Leicester people see Vardy, or do they know that he's a total prick? They accept that.
No, imagine if you're a Leicester fan, he's your absolute all-time hero, isn't he? I mean, not only has he scored a ton of goals for you, he didn't leave. He could have left a number of times, but he stuck around even after the championship. I mean, yeah, if I was a Leicester fan, I think I'd have a tattoo of him on my face or something. I mean, I'd absolutely love it.
The first time I remember seeing Vardy was in that 5-3 United game. I suppose that's probably when a lot of people saw him. It was the start of
Di Maria game, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching that as well. I remember it.
That was when they just come up from the championship. It was at the start of the season. I was like, who the hell is this fella? And actually, he was like Tevez, because Tevez used to do, before it was in vogue, he was always pressing from the front. But Vardy was just a different animal. He obviously comes across as a bit of a bollocks, doesn't he? So,
Well, absolutely. But once again, I don't mean to be too hard on him because, my goodness, I would have loved him to play for my team. Being
yeah,
a bit of a bollocks for my team, I'd absolutely have loved it. And he's a super player. Yeah, whip it like, and actually looks like a whippet as well. So got it all going on.
yeah, he is. He's crazy quick, and he does know how to score goals. The book itself follows a, standard chronological order with the exception of the prologue. So why don't we get started there? This is the Jamie Vardy's having a party thing. Isn't that a chant? That,
Bring your vodka, bring your Charlie.
They're watching Chelsea versus Spurs.
The Battle of Stamford Bridge.
Spurs need to win, right? That's what happens, right? Yeah. And then they're going at Spurs are ahead. They're 2 up, but Chelsea pull it back and it finishes 2-2. I think that's enough to win the league. But some of the lines is like, then you really have to do. You can't really blame Jamie for this. You have to question the ghostwriter. It's like this kind of prose. It's like, quote, we will have to come back and finish the job. Then this is like in the prologue. It's like, whoa, we're really getting off to an exciting.
There's an insight into footballers' minds.
Sorry, that's not even his line either. It's like, we will have to finish the job then, said one of the lads. Doesn't even bother to remember like who said this line in his like 5-page prologue. Another thing, one of the lads was in tears while another was just shaking his head. It's like, come on, give me a.
That's how you'll feel by the end of this book, John.
Yeah, he really kind of yadas his way through a lot of it. I guess this is a theme that I found throughout the book, that the least interesting parts are the Leicester parts. Towards the end of the book, I just kind of like, it just starts to drift a bit. And you'd think that that'd be really, well, presumably that was what they expected people were tuning in for, because they were selling it like, as I say, 5 months after they won the league. The only interesting detail in that first prologue was that Wes Morgan owns a tattoo parlor. That was the most interesting thing that I learned there.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Well, for me, the most interesting thing, Johnny, is that he lives in Melton Mowbray. Now, this is going to not mean a lot to a lot of people, but I grew up 10 miles from Melton Mowbray. And if I was a multi-million footballer, I can assure you this, brother, I would not be living in Melton Mowbray. Oh, no, that's not where I would be living.
That's funny, because I just assumed...
Famous for its cat food factory and pork pies.
But, okay, like, it is a remarkable... Like, I suppose at the start of this book, it's worth reminding ourselves, like, just how remarkable it was. 5,000 to 1. Now, I'm sure anyone who's listening to us talk about Vardy is very familiar with that, but it does warrant kind of just remembering, because it was absolutely crazy. These things are just not supposed to happen.
It was a miracle. It was, and it was a miracle I kept thinking wouldn't happen. I was sure they were going to bottle it, but they didn't. And I think, Johnny, that's maybe why we are so familiar with the Leicester City part of a book, is because it is now in folklore, isn't it? Which that story has been told so many times. It is used an example as to why football is not completely and utterly broken to the money men. It's, well, Leicester can still do it, and they did it getting on for 10 years ago now. But it is, yeah, it is one of the most remarkable stories, and one that we're all pretty familiar with, I think, by now.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess, passage of time and all the rest of it. It's not that everybody gets up and thinks about Leicester every day, but yeah, it was remarkable. The most unlikely
Yourself, Johnny.
sporting or event in sport and we'll see in our lifetime, probably 5001. The bookies are rarely that wrong.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. I'd say so. I mean, no one expected that. No one in the world. Nobody in the world did. And
All right,
it
well,
really was remarkable, wasn't it? It really was.
I know that you have a whole set of expertly organized notes. So let's take it up then. Let's take up this story with a young Jamie Vardy, born in the shadow of Hillsborough in 1987.
So, chapter 1, Blue and White Stripes, where Jamie goes on to describe how much he loved the Sheffield Wednesday striker David Hirst. There's not much to say about that, but I will say this. Normally, first chapters in autobiographies can be pretty dull. It's like a Oscar speech. First of all, you have to thank your mum and dad. You have to talk about how much you love your mum and dad and how much they've done for you and your career. Well, you don't need to worry about with old Jamie Vardy. He doesn't love his mum and dad at all.
No,
I mean, I think he mentions them once. Like, I don't look, mate, maybe twice. Dad did this, dad did that. But my goodness, not a word of thanks, not a word of love for the old parents.
No.
Anyway, Jamie Vardy, young man, loved Sheffield Wednesday, hated Sheffield United. He speaks warmly about his grandma and granddad, but there is very little to go on his parents. Very little indeed.
Yeah. So he's let go when he's 16, too small. This must happen to an awful lot of people who have a lot of promise, really, just their whatever age they kind of grow at, there must be really common. But I suppose in terms of the Vardy story, the genesis, we don't get much. He gives a reasonably nice anecdote about playing football, head tennis with Di Canio and Benito Carbone. But the mention of Di Canio, of course, made me go back and watch him pushing the ref, which really was quite a fun thing.
I mean, there's a couple of anecdotes about his primary school, if I can just dip into it. Unsurprisingly, Jamie did not like school, and I wasn't expecting him to. And honestly, it feels to me like the Ghost Rider was just trying to drag out of him some sort of story which could be relatable to people. So here we are. He had a maths teacher, Mr. Pemberton. He didn't hate Mr. Pemberton. He didn't hate Mr. Pemberton. Mr. Pemberton did a bloody times table thing on a crossword in a circle. Jamie refers back to this many times. It's astonishing how much Jamie Vardy refers back to his bloody maths teacher, Mr. Pemberton, who taught him basic times tables.
Do you reckon that Mr. Pemberton existed? And if yes, was he actually the teacher of the ghostwriter Stuart James? That must surely happen in these books.
Yeah, I guess stuff could be invented there. I would imagine that Mr. Pemberton probably didn't remember Jamie Vardy very fondly, would be my guess. I think the Ghost Rider was just looking for a teacher that Jamie Vardy didn't actively swear at or something. Yeah. He also mentions he enjoys going to soccer football matches, so he can swear unreservedly. Dishing out a few swear words was one of his favourite things he could do at Hillsborough and not get in trouble.
You described him as looking like a whippet. He has a kind of face where I think he probably did get in trouble a bit.
Looks like, yeah, I can imagine Jamie Vardy in the street being 15 in a tracksuit, walking up to me and asking me for a cigarette or something, and me saying, I don't have a cigarette, and then him calling me a pedo and trying to attack me. I'm being very harsh on him.
Anyway, yeah, there's very little. We could probably fast forward through a lot of the youth stuff. What is interesting, and it's not that you never hear about footballers getting rejected, but it's like, he got rejected from Man United and then I signed for Wolves or something like that. It's usually that kind of thing. But so he ends up going to this Stocksbridge Park Steels in the 8th tier of English football. And at the same time, he's working in a factory making moldings for prosthetics, a factory called True Life. He's playing football and working, living, I suppose, a standard enough kind of life for whatever he is, 20 at the time. No, he goes to Stocksbridge when he's a bit younger because he plays in their under 18s and stuff, I think. The only thing really that stood out for me in this chapter was when he described slide tackling his colleagues in the factory as they were going about their daily business, piping hot molds out of the oven. And there goes Jamie leaving in a little reducer from behind.
At this point in Jamie's career, he really had given up on being a footballer professionally. He just does truly love playing football. I mean, he's obviously good at it, but yeah, at this point in his life, you're right. He's just a regular teenager who's working a job, playing football at the weekends, and is a complete thug. Chapter 3, smash him on the ankle, he's got a tag on. Yeah. Well, who's him? Him is Jamie, and the tag is an electronic computer tag for criminals. Now, here's a story where, in this book, Jamie Vardy was basically a massive hero that ends up on the wrong side of the law. He was innocently enjoying a night out with a disabled friend when his disabled friend got into an argument. Well, Jamie wasn't taking that. They crossed a line when they began to mock his profoundly deaf friend. And, well, let's face it, they give him a bit of a shoeing. I mean, just to read a quote here, one of them squared up to Chris and started arguing with him, getting more and more angry. Then it all kicked off when the lad leaned in and unbelievably tried to bite Chris's nose off. I mean, that doesn't sound great. But this next chapter, he just tries to throw it away. Chris had a bottle of Carlsberg he'd sneaked into his pocket to drink on the way home, as we often would in those days, and he used it in retaliation, hitting the lad over the head with it. He just bottled him.
Yeah, astonishing stuff.
I don't know. I mean, I guess if someone's trying to bite off your nose, unbelievably, then maybe smash him in the head with a bottle is the right thing to do. But I've managed to go through my whole life without ever trying to bite someone's nose off, or indeed smash them in the head with a bottle of Carlsberg.
He repeats a few times how they were kind of the victim of what happened, but it's not how the judge saw it, is it, Al?
It's not how the judge saw it. No.
So we have four.
Not at all.
Fellows, four perps in this situation. So we have Jamie and his friend Chris, as you call him, and these two fellas that they fought with. So all those fellas, they got much lighter sentences than Jamie. And while we know that Chris bottled,
smashed the head.
Yeah, so Jamie is pretty light on the detail about what he did, but we do know that he got, so this is what he got. He got 6 months on the tag, as he called it, 2 years probation, and a 12-month suspended sentence. But most significantly, he didn't go to jail. So I suppose, yeah.
Although, laments this at some point, maybe it would have just been easier to go to jail after defending his friend's honor. Let's not forget that. He was defending his friend's honor. He was a young lad here, and I'm not trying to give him a hard time because I got in fights when I was a teenager. I did. But this sounded a particularly nasty fight. It really did. And if Jamie Vardy, having neither tried to bite off someone's nose nor smash someone in the head with a bottle of Carlsberg, was the most heavily sentenced, it does make you question as to what mischief he really was up to.
And if that particular incident doesn't turn against Jamie, then perhaps his Facebook tagline at the time, on his 21st birthday, I think he had to spend that at home because he was essentially only allowed. He had a curfew, and that's what the tag was for. Do you have any recollection of what his tagline was, Al, on Facebook when he turned 21?
I think I have a suspicion.
Go on.
He was 21. He was loving life, getting paid, getting laid.
There you go. That's that made it into the book anyway. But you have to go on.
I mean, who wouldn't want to remember that special moment, like pithy one-liners? He's a poet. It
Um,
rhymes.
I think he could have, I think this was an opportunity. They're presented with a choice here in this book, and if they'd given us a bit more detail, he was on an anger management course. He really could have gotten into the internal monologue of Jamie Vardy at this point. Maybe that could have set it off in a different direction. But this chapter is also memorable for one other thing, Al, and that's when we meet the in-betweeners. That's right. That's
You're
right.
gonna love these lads, folks.
I'd say top
This
band
is what
selection.
this is what Jamie Vardy's wife Rebecca dubbed his close group of friends, the in-betweeners.
A bancy bunch of lads, like dressing up and the likes. So he's gotten off. He's off the tag, I think, at this point. He did have one nice story where he was where he had to essentially, depending on where their games were, he would or would not be able to go depending on how far it was and how close it was to the curfew and all the rest of it. And there was an entertaining enough story about him coming off at 60 minutes into the game and running as far as the hoardings and climbing over, jumping into a car and speeding directly home. And somebody was waiting to whisk him away so he wouldn't break curfew. He also,
and it's testament to his dedication, because he really does love football and he's really good at it, and he's prepared to go to lengths to play it. And
he really did love football. That's true, I think. And yeah, that does, to be fair, that comes across. And as somebody, like, obviously we were talking about football, we like football, and that is a redeeming feature. If you're
it is. Is it no to that?
If I'm at a wedding, for example, and I'm sitting beside, just say I go to a wedding, it's +1, I'm there, and I'm sitting, don't know anyone, and then the guy I sit beside, you like football? Yes. Okay, well, we'll be fine. We'll be fine for the evening, So yes, that does make me like Jamie a bit more.
All right. Okay. Well, here, ask yourself a hypothetical situation. If you were sitting next to Jamie Vardy at a wedding, would you be able to get along with him with your football chats?
I think you'd probably. I think the conversation would be largely about Jamie. I don't think it would be much of a two-way exchange, But yeah, I think like we're sitting talking about him. We've read his book. We're sitting talking about him. So yes, I'm willing to gamble that I'd be happy enough sitting beside him at a wedding.
Yeah, there you go. I have a fondness for Sheffield Wednesday, and I don't like Sheffield United, so we had that to bond over.
There's always the skittle vodka, if things aren't going well, you can always hit that. Another incident which he gives very, very sparing detail on is when he got glassed in his local. Now, he just says he was just hanging around and then suddenly he was glassed. Now, it doesn't fall to me to question our protagonist, but did you believe him?
Sure, he was innocent, Johnny. Jamie, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He would never. He was just a sweet, innocent young man in the wrong place at the wrong time. So many times, Jamie Vardy's in the wrong at the wrong time. I mean, a lot.
Could be the face again, as we said, but he nearly lost an eye. So whatever about the incident, the brush with the law, which obviously could have put paid to his footballing aspirations, I think losing an eye would have been the end, right? I don't know if there's many that come back from that kind of thing.
Let's draw a veil over this chapter and just leave it with this quote. I'm not the sort of person to take a step back, and that doesn't mean I can't handle myself. It's more a case of thinking, what's the worst that can happen? You get sparked out, or to borrow another phrase, chat shit, get banged.
I think actually the next part of the book is the most interesting, maybe unsurprisingly. And this is when he goes to Halifax and on to Fleetwood. He was at Stocksbridge for 7 years. Like, that is remarkable, really, when you think about it.
It is. It really is. Considering, what he's gone on to do.
Yeah. And he was getting, so at Halifax, he's getting £120 a week. Sorry, he was on £120 a week at Stocksbridge. And it's actually quite a cool name, isn't it? Stocksbridge Park Steels. They sound like a North England, American football franchise. That's what it sounds like.
The Glasgow Claymores.
But anyway, he goes from Stocksbridge Park Steels. He was on £120 a week. And then he gets an agent. ambitious enough in itself. And he goes to £350 a week at Halifax, where he got four red cards in 12 months, and he was described by someone as, quote unquote, a lunatic. But yes, now, like, obviously we have not been very polite or kind, shall we say, to Jamie in terms of his off-field behaviour. But, you know, this is makes him the player he is, isn't it, Al? He doesn't hold back.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I mean, he was just desperate to play football. Yeah, there was also interest from Sheffield United, if I can just read a quick paragraph. Then again, that Sheffield United scout was wasting his time in the first place. It wouldn't have made any difference if he thought I was Messi or Ronaldo, because there was no way I was ever going to sign for Sheffield United. No matter how much money they offered me, no matter what league they were in, no matter how big the opportunity, I'd never play for Sheffield United. And Wednesday through and through, always have been, always will be. It's in my blood, blue and white. Now that, Johnny, I can respect. God bless him. God bless him for that. Anyway, to move on. Yeah, so this is when he starts moving up in the world and people start recognizing him for the talent that he is. It's also in this chapter that we are first introduced to Ella Vardy, Jamie's daughter. And I genuinely really enjoyed this line. I met Emma Daggett, Ella's mother, a few years earlier. We'd see each other a couple of times in the week, but she'd go out with her friends on a weekend and I'd go out with mine. It wasn't really a close relationship. So when Emma fell pregnant in the summer of 2009, neither of us really knew if we were ready to be parents. It wasn't really a close relationship, not that close, you know. No, old Emma Daggett, she must be reading this book like, oh, I wonder if I made it. Oh, it wasn't a close relationship. Oh, well, we were quite close at times. Pretty close. As close as two humans can possibly be. Yeah, very nice. Very nice, Jamie. Class act always. And this gives me another opportunity to bring back to Mr. Pemberton. Ella's arrival gave me extra motivation on the pitch. It wasn't all about me anymore, and I needed to make some extra money too. The move to Halifax in May 2010 offered me the chance, but it also showed that I needed to work on my negotiation skills. But don't worry, while maths had always been a strong point thanks to Mr. Pemberton's round-the-clock timetable, I certainly didn't have Halifax backed into a corner with my wage demands.
The next chapter, he's moving to Fleetwood. The adopted Scouser. He's sharing a house with his Fleetwood teammates. So he signed in 2011. He's aged 24. Still not in the Football League. One rung below using the...
I mean, I think that puts things into perspective. In as much as, like, look at some of these top players. I mean, I think Kylian Mbappe is 24, right? I believe that's...
He's won the World Cup. This is the first time. This is the first time. So he's 24. It's the first time in his life that he's training and playing full time. And he's making £850 a week. They signed him for 150 grand. £850 a week. I thought that was more than you would be getting
in a non-league team.
Yeah, it's like £3 a month.
Yeah, it's 10 years ago as well.
Yeah, it's not terrible, is it? I suppose you're not going to be saving very much, but not bad.
No, but I mean, it's definitely, it's not bad for playing, lower league football. But then he got bought up for 150 grand. I wonder what other people are on contracts like Halifax. I bet we're not on a fraction of that.
Really, 150 grand. Yeah, he did go on about how this was a record fee, blah blah blah. He also he does talk. Maybe this is true of all football books. He does talk a lot about cash, and another thing he talks a lot about is bants. He talks in this chapter about going into his chief executive's bedroom while they were on some trip and turning the place upside down, and then meeting the chief executive later in the lobby. And the chief executive said something about how he'd done a crap job of tearing his room apart. So he went back. He went back again, but with shaving foam.
Well, I've got no sympathy with the chief executive at this point. Honestly, it's a red flag to avoid. You didn't do a very good job there, did you, Jamie?
Yeah.
Well,
how will Jamie Vardy react to this? All of that aside, this is when we start to see the big time. He's on his way to the big time. Leicester and Southampton offer £1 million for Jamie Vardy, but he's been bought for 150k, and this this owner of Fleetwood has his eye on the Football League. They wouldn't let him go. It was during the season, and he refused to play a game. Do you think?
Yeah, a little tantrum.
Yeah. Do you think he'd do the same thing?
I can imagine he's frustrated. He doesn't want to play Forest Green in case he gets injured. But he's not selfish. Goes at pains to point that out about himself. He'll always do the best for a team.
Yes.
I mean, I understand him here. I do. I mean, of course, you get the opportunity to go with big money into a proper league, you're going to want to. But equally, they spent the money on him. They took the risk. It's one of those football things. You're a footballer under contract, and that's how it works, right?
So yeah, well, he is humble, if nothing else, as he points out when he says that he earned the nickname God while playing at Fleetwood. Do you think Cantona felt the need to, like crowbar that into his book?
Or Robbie Fowler, or
Or-
Letitia, all players that he
Yeah.
considers himself equal to. Also, in this chapter, it just gives us the opportunity to see that the fact that he produced his autobiography at the age of, what, 27, 28 when this came out, there's not much to tell. There's this rubbish story about how he plays football, he passes a 50p to his teammates. It is the worst story, and it's
Yeah.
meant to be funny. It's like a page-long story about him passing 50p's about to his teammates in a game. Sometimes he runs out of things to say.
So here we go. Now we're like, okay, this is really when you think the book is going to take off, right? Because he signs for Leicester. First million
Here we go.
non-league player. Did you know that? Would you have known that if I'd asked you?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So he's on $8,000 a week now. That is a tenfold increase. You can really see Mr. Pemberton's influence throughout this book with his focus on maths and sums. You really
Absolutely.
He was on
That's how he got that money.
$8,000 a week, $2,000 a week bonus. He didn't really say what kind of bonus it
Some
was.
sort of loyalty bonus, but it's
Yeah.
just bullshit.
But tenfold increase. Okay, $10,000 a month. Now it's like, okay, now we're in the big time for sure. So that's $500,000 a year. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
But then the other side of it, something that struck me, right, is like obviously we know that, like obviously his world has changed, right? And then there's this passage where he says he dived in a match against Blackpool, and people were giving him abuse on Twitter, saying that they wished that he and his daughter died of AIDS. Football fans really are a fairly fucking horrible bunch, aren't they?
Oh, they're just. I mean, it's got to be kids, right? It's got to be kids, dude. Surely.
I'm not sure about that, but anyway, I suppose this is it. And Jamie he's a loose character, shall we say? So I suppose his arrival in the big time has obviously a lot of positives, but there's some drawbacks for Jamie as well. It's also finally when we hear about the Skittles vodka, and this is really what the book is about. Tell me, Al, what is Skittles vodka? Do you want to?
Yeah, well, Jamie, he had a big bottle of vodka. They just kept putting Skittles in. Apparently, the Skittles would then dissolve. So he'd just keep adding more and more and more Skittles to this bottle of vodka. And then he'd take a sip of the vodka. Guess what it tasted like, Johnny?
Go on, tell me.
Skittles. It tasted like Skittles. And basically, that's what Jamie Vardy is most famous for in the world. Not his championship win, not his hundreds of Premier League goals, not Wagatha Christie. It's bloody Skittle vodka. And he seems fairly happy with that. So good for him.
Like, what's obviously a fun thing about reading any of these books is watching, the interesting things that happen in a sporting sense or in a criminal sense when it comes to Jamie, as we'll see in a little while. The videos on. So I had actually recently, nothing to do with this this book. I had watched that last few minutes of that playoff game, that the Troy Deeney goal for Watford.
Oh, Watford, absolutely. I've watched that 100 times.
that is something else. And so what was interesting is that kid Knockhart who got taken down for that penalty. So so what happens? Okay, they're drawing at the end, 120 minutes played. It's the playoff semi-final, is it? Or is it final?
Playoff semi.
And so this Knockhart young kid goes through on goal. He definitely dives undoubtedly dives. I looked at that a few times and wins a penalty. But the interesting thing was he wasn't supposed to take the penalty. He wasn't the penalty taker. But he insisted on taking the penalty, missed it, and then Watford go up the other end and score that goal, that Troy Deeney goal. And okay, obviously you've read this book, so it's cheating just to pretend, but would you have been able to tell me who was on the bench for that game?
I do know that. I've always known that. That was one of those famous things.
Go on,
But
tell me. Let's see the full extent of it, though. Three future England internationals. Who are they?
oh bugger! All right, so there's Vardy J.
Yeah,
There's a certain young man you may have heard of, H. Kane. Who's the third one?
Drinky.
Oh, Drinkwater.
Yeah, Drink
It's
there as well.
like for bright and fast, isn't it? Oh, Danny Drinkwater.
Yeah. He gave a lot of credit to Pearson and the shaky Shakespeare because he had a real crisis of confidence. This was the only time really in the book that we got into Jamie's head. He wanted to go back to Fleetwood that year. He was having a crap.
Yeah, that's how they frame this chapter, right? It starts with him like, "Oh, I want to go back because I'm not cutting the mustard," but eventually the mustard gets cut.
Yes.
But he's not into everything. We were asked to meet with a psychologist in the 2012 and 13 season.
Not for Jamie?
Guess what? Not for Jamie. Not
Not for
him. No. There's just no. But there isn't a hidden layer, is there? There's nothing underneath. I don't think going on with him.
Yeah, but okay. So, all right. There's the next chapter 7. The proposal is about when he meets his wife. Maybe you want to tell us about that. I have a feeling you're going to have some strong views.
Well, again, I don't want to sound so elitist and terrible. Well, this book was written long before the whole Agatha Christie case. If you're unaware of that, Jamie Vardy's wife, Rebecca Vardy, went on to betray Wayne Rooney's wife to the newspapers and sell stories about her. And then she took Colleen Rooney to court in order to prove herself innocent, which she did not do. She did not do.
She was guilty.
She proved herself guilty.
Yeah.
It was as bad a case of shooting yourself in the foot as I think I've ever seen in the public eye, right? It was obviously she was naughty. She did it. She tried to prove she didn't. She just made herself look worse. It's like that Barbra Streisand thing, like, oh, no one should see my house. Everyone's seen your house now.
The Streisand effect.
The Streisand effect, exactly. Funny girl.
And sorry, just another little aside. Did you know that Jamie and Rebecca, or Becky as he calls her, Vardy, brought out a kids book last year? Now, I bet you that's an absolute horror show. But anyway, if it's
my goodness,
it's.
I didn't know about that.
Ooh, yeah. Anyway, okay. So tell us about the romance.
Well, it is romantic. She only agreed to meet him on the proviso that he would stop texting her. Eventually, she agreed to meet him in a pub. He's, I better keep myself together here. Better have. He tried to order himself a fruit juice, but the barman, damn him, brought him a double vodka. Anyway, by the time Rebecca came in the pub, he gave her a big cuddle and then started wrestling with his friend on the floor. He just sounds so fucking exhausting. Oh my God, just me. Oh God, it's like, oh, I brought my girlfriend. I really like her. Oh, I'm gonna fight you. Just pack it in, lad. Just let it go, you manimal.
Yeah.
But yes, it's not the most beautiful love story I've ever heard, but 8 years on, they're still together. He represented him in court. Maybe they're very in love, and good luck to him, and good luck to her.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, he does sound absolutely fucking exhausting. But he's well matched to his friends, the in-betweeners. One of them he reveals again with his signature humility that one of his buddies, I can't remember which one, got Vardy's signature tattooed to his arse when they were in.
That would be his friend Rans.
That's right.
Rans, yeah.
Right. Okay. And the same trip, Vardy
Would
broke
you
his.
get my name tattooed on your ass, Johnny? Come on.
If you had just signed for Leicester and you were just promoted to the Premier League, then I suppose I would consider it. I
All
wouldn't.
right, on that
I would,
proviso. All right, well, back at you, lad. When you sign for Leicester City, I'll also
yeah,
get your name
yeah,
tattooed. I'll get it tattooed on my face, dude.
okay, yeah, yeah.
On my neck.
So I guess maybe it wasn't a state secret or anything, but Vardy had that cast that season when they won the league. Did you know what he had done to his hand?
Oh, I mean, I didn't at the time, but this was the old punchy punch machine in a.
He broke it on a punching machine.
Of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, of course, Jamie Vardy could walk past a bloody punching machine without absolutely knackering his hand. Of course he did. Like,
You can imagine.
I bet he fed hundreds of pounds into that machine, punching it away like a chap. Yeah.
You can imagine walking down the street with Jamie, chatting away, and him just bolting into the machine from the street and like running up and boxing it without even like putting money into the thing. The other thing here, and this was one of the things that made it into the press around the time of the launch of this book, which again is maybe a sign of the amount of intriguing detail in the book. And it's a question for you all. What is Jamie Vardy's pre-match regimen? So specifically, when he's playing at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, what does he do?
He's like 12 Red Bulls, right? And has an omelette. Lots and lots of Red Bull.
So he has no breakfast. He slowly drinks a can of Red Bull. And he gets
Slowly. That's nice detail.
He has.
I'm going to slow down. I'm going to take my time with this one.
He has a total of 3 cans of Red Bull and a double espresso, which I think he only started the espresso when he was brought into the big leagues. That some of those continental types. But yeah, so 3 cans of Red Bull, a double espresso, and a ham and cheese omelette over the course of the morning and lunchtime. Like, no wonder he is an absolute fucking, like, he does seem like he is a fucking lunatic. And 3 cans of Red Bull would, that would send really anyone off. But Jamie Vardy on 3 cans of Red Bull, fucking hell, man. So I suppose, yeah, this book, right? This is a series of essentially fairly juvenile antics set against this amazing background that they really fail to kind of tell very well. So another Bants alert, which this was funny enough, to be fair. He went on a trip to Thailand on a pre-season tour, and he stole the hat off of Leicester. I think he was a staff guy or a coach, and he threw it in the sea. But then your man was furious because he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
He's like a moi on Alan Partridge. I'll throw it in the sea.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. Yeah.
Frankly, considering Leicester City's other trip to Thailand, that's a good one, right? You did well, Jamie. You did well.
Yeah.
You did well. That's it. Stay away. No, you did great. You only threw someone's hat in the sea. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
didn't do what other people did. Did the man wear his hat? He loved the hat, didn't he, the man? It was a special hat. He climbed a mountain in that. Was it where was it? Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. Kilimanjaro. Yeah.
My special Mount Kilimanjaro hat. Oh, Jamie, go and get
it. But now, okay. Now we're really in the big time, Al. The Premier
we are.
League. A few years ago, he's running around naked at Fleetwood for being late. Now there are monks being flown over to Leicester to bless the dressing room. Talk about a change in circumstance for old Jamie. Okay, I've got 2 questions for you. I think you'll get one and you won't get the other. Who was the United manager when Leicester famously beat them 5-3?
Louis van Gaal.
Did you know that before the book? Did you remember that?
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
And who was the United player who got sent off?
No, I don't know.
Tyler Blackett. Now, when was the last time you heard of him?
Don't know what Tyler Blackett's up to nowadays. I bet he's at Celtic or something, or Rangers.
Or like MLS or something, or Australia, who knows? Anyway, so that was an absolutely astonishing game of football. That 5-3. So they're playing against Rooney, Van Persie, Di Maria, Falcao. No, okay, Di Maria didn't really fancy it, did he? Falcao, bit of a busted flush at that stage, but still, it is a remarkable turnaround, and that really
That's
was.
when Di Maria did that little flicky goal, though, didn't it? Which absolutely a little scooped goal, one of the great goals.
Yeah, he was good at United, and then he just decided it wasn't for him. His house
Total fanny, right? Just a total fanny.
his house got broken into, but I think if you're a Premier League player in England, you have to expect a break-in or two, it seems. But yeah, wasn't there that moment when, what did Vardy do? He kind of chased somebody down. He really did seem like a fella who had 12 Red Bulls and a ham and cheese omelette. He played like that.
He did.
So yeah, as mentioned, they lost the next 11 out of 13 matches, and they drew the other 2. So they're bottom of the league on Boxing Day. Do you think that so you mentioned Pearson and what his son got up to when they were next in Thailand. What do you think Pearson thinks of his son, or what was the conversation around the Pearson household, do you reckon, the year that Leicester won the league?
Yeah. No, it must have been a very frosty place because it was all so completely unnecessary, wasn't it? But yes, so I can imagine he's very cross. And yeah, poor old Pearson never really found his way back to the big time, did he? I mean, last I knew, he was manager of Bristol City, but I don't think he is anymore. So I think, yeah.
So the son and 2 other players who I think are also never really went anywhere, involved in sex tape, and that was what put paid to Pearson's time at Leicester. But one thing here that I did enjoy, and I suppose this is what you want from football books ultimately, is he really hated Cambiasso. He really had no time for Cambiasso.
I've got to tell you, that's part of a book I enjoyed, very much. Like, at least,
but
I thought he was Billy Big Bollocks, didn't he? Like,
yeah, I'd like if he went into a bit more detail of why he found him to be such a prick, but he did think he was a prick. But that was the end of it for Cambiasso. Leicester stay up, which again, like, okay, everybody knows Leicester won the league, but they just squeezed back into the Premier League just to be around for it. That in itself is remarkable, you know.
They were responsible for one of my greatest ever moments in that end of season. In my fantasy football team, I had 3 Leicester City players when they were having their revival. I got 109th highest score in the world with 3 Leicester City players.
Did they send you like a kind of a plaque or anything when you get 109th?
They didn't send me anything, Johnny.
Send you nothing. Christ alive.
Unbelievable.
We saw a sign of maybe a little flicker earlier that Jamie's not as dedicated always as he wants us to believe. So he's been at pains to tell us what a big football fan he is, what a big football man he is. And he gets the England call up. Actually, looking back at the players, England are a different team now. These are the lads that were injured for England. Ricky Lambert, Daniel Sturridge, and Danny Welbeck. Oof, it's poor enough, isn't it? So
I guess Sturridge was all right at the time.
Vardy and Charlie Austin get the call up because Harry Kane was in the under-21s. But anyway, he wanted to shy off. He didn't want to go. He was going to just make up an excuse and say he was injured or something. Can you imagine that?
Yes, it's astonishing. I mean, maybe a genuine little bit of a self-doubt there.
Come on, you reckon?
I mean, that's it. He spent his whole life on
Charlie Austin and Ricky Lambert.
No, you're quite right.
Okay, so this is also when he gives us another throwback. He mentions, like, why did he put this piece of information into the book? He's like, in 2010, he'd been watching England versus Germany in a pub when Lampard's goal was disallowed. And he threw a beer glass at the screen of the pub. Like, there's no need for that information, Jamie. Was that in the pub?
Absolutely not.
Was that in the public
No,
domain?
that stuck out to me. Again, I've spent my whole life, my goodness me, I've been disappointed by football at times, but I've always managed to restrain myself. Like, I've never thrown a pint glass at a pub TV.
Yeah. This is where we we get back to the chat shit and get banged. That's Jamie's mantra. He claims he doesn't
Sure
remember
is.
posting on his Facebook, but someone went back through all of Jamie's Facebook posts as far back as 2011. That's like, at this point, that's 4 years of Jamie's Facebook posts to find this chat shit and get banged.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
So, okay, we're getting in towards the very end of it, and okay, essentially there's two things remaining in the book. Claudio's there. He loves Claudio. Leicester win the league. But then, of course, the other is, in a way, more interesting. And that's the racism.
Racism.
Yeah. So, you hadn't seen the video of this.
I hadn't, but now I have.
It's pretty bad, isn't it?
It's not pretty.
So, yeah, he's in a casino and he starts racially abusing a young fella who was around the table, essentially. He says he was looking at his cards. But then, yeah, I'm surprised in a way he kept his job.
And yeah, certainly if it had been other racial epithets, I think he would have struggled much more. But I think he got away with it because he just claimed ignorance, right? That was his thing. I didn't realize it was offensive.
Yeah, it's nasty enough. Anyway, but Jamie's able to bounce back. He stops going out and he builds a bar in his home with a full-size snooker table. So full-size snooker table says it's every bit as bad as, compares it to house arrest. It was like being under house arrest that time. A bit different, Jamie. Bit different.
Yeah, he suffered so much at the hands of other people for his own actions.
Yeah, well,
I'd never have used the word chap if I'd known it was racist. I'd never have used it. No. Yeah, I think you knew it was racist. I think you did it anyway.
Oh yeah, he definitely knew it was racist. There is the stuff about his father is interesting. That stuff. The Mail on Sunday brings someone to a match who they claim to be his biological father, and he doesn't know this. He says he'd heard a couple of people saying things growing up, I know your real father is, this person's your brother or whatever, but he never actually confronted his mom and dad about it. And then this comes out in the paper. Now that's crazy stuff. And did they bring this fella to the match? The headline was, imagine this fella going along to the match as well. Like, what a fucker. Soccer's record breaker is my son. You're kidding? ? Or exclamation mark. That's the headline. It's pretty poor now, isn't it? But and this is also when we learn that Jamie and his family have essentially fallen out. He doesn't give a whole lot of detail, and ultimately, I suppose, there has to be a line, private at the end of the day, but does seem to be related to the missus. There does seem to be an issue there that he kind of accuses his parents of never liking her ultimately, but sure.
What could you possibly not like about Rebecca Vardy?
Yeah.
Who in 2004 described who's that mysterious girl saying "ooh" went out with Jordan as being hung like a gerbil. What's his name?
Peter Andre.
Peter Andre. So sorry. Yeah. She's already been in celebrity sextile stories. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure she's very, very nice. It's just everything you read about her in the media would suggest that she's not.
Right. Yeah. I'd say she, if she's not coming across well in this book,
Yeah.
it doesn't really read well for any other.
This is what he writes. I will always defend Becky. She's had some horrible stuff written about her in the newspapers, and it's far from the truth. I know the real Becky, and so do our friends. Well, this is all pre-Wagatha Christie, isn't it? Yeah. It's all pre-Wagatha Christie.
But yeah, anyway, that's the racist firestorm, and he bit like maybe Lance Armstrong. I think the thing that annoys him most is probably that he got caught, because ultimately this is what torpedoed the movie that we all wanted to see, the Jamie Vardy story. This was probably what put paid to that. So he says here that there was a Hollywood screenwriter or something sniffing
Yeah,
about, and they had Zac Efron was going to be Jamie Vardy.
perfect.
It would have been worth seeing.
They're like two peas in a pod. They're almost identical.
But yeah, and obviously then they win the league. I suppose this part, I didn't feel like there was any really interesting detail.
Despite having like a geographical non-love for Leicester, I was thrilled by this at the time, and I loved him. I just thought he was, in some ways, I like him as a footballer. I like the way he's an antagonistic,
Oh, I definitely like
say
that
die
about him.
attitude.
Yeah, and I suppose, yeah, like obviously Kante and Mahrez have went on to fairly spectacular things. The likes of Schmeichel have had good careers, but yeah, it was a fairly remarkable confluence of events that brought these, well, I suppose, no-name players into this, like, ultimately fortuitous period of time, because none of, like, it was Spurs who they were, competing against to win the league.
Yeah, yeah, that was it. It was the first of Guardiola's first season, right? So everything was a little bit transitional, and yeah, Leicester took their chance and
Yeah.
was stunning in doing it. Like again, I don't want to diminish anything from there, or indeed his achievements.
Go on. What do you reckon? How how many bottles of Skittles vodka out of 5 would you give to the Jamie Vardy story?
I give it 2 bottles of vodka out of 5. I enjoyed reading it. At the end of the day, I read it in 2 days. It's a very slim volume. There's like only 270 pages, and about 130 of those pages about his maths teacher, Mr. Pemberton.
So brevity, that's what you look for in a book.
Brevity. Well, I mean, it's better to be a boring short story than a boring long story. And it's not even a boring story. It is a good story. If Jamie Vardy were to write an autobiography now, I think could be absolutely fascinating. Where you don't have to stretch out the less interesting things. Where I don't have to hear about stupid 50p piece games, or like him just having an argument with a man because he was right. Where he could actually write about these things. He's so much more to write about now. I think there is a great story in there,
Well,
but this is
unfortunately,
not
he's
it.
moved into the world of children's literature, so I guess we might be denied the next installment of the sequence of Vardy books. It's an amazing story, poorly told. Ultimately, isn't it? That's what this book is, and it limps over the line. I had actually written 2 bottles of Skittle vodka out of 5 as well. I would have called it unvarnished, the Jamie Vardy story. That's what I would have called it. And
That's a good name.
I think they should have really, really gotten into the nasty side of him, but then tried to talk about how winning the league made him a better person.
Well, that's right. I think, yeah, if he were to write this book from no longer being a footballer, then you could be more honest about himself. But at this stage in his career, he was still an active player, still had years ahead of him, and I don't think he could afford to be that truthful. It just
No.
does strike me as a complete cash grab. He was incredibly famous at this juncture. They really were going to make a movie about him until they read the bloody book and were like, "Christ, there's nothing."
But yeah, I would say 2 bottles out of 5, and that's probably enough of the Jamie Vardy story from
Yeah,
us.
I think I safely say, folks, if you're listening to this, you can give this book a wide berth. You don't need to read this one. This is not a good book to read.
Yeah. I like, if you're a Leicester fan, you've probably read it.
Yeah,
So then no one else should read it.
that's exactly right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. So thank you from the
Well,
Ademola
thank you very
Bookmen
much.